Hello, this is John from caveofprogramming.com. In this tutorial, we're going to look at reading slightly more complicated formatted text data from a file. So let's right-click the project here and go to New File, and I'm going to create a file called stats.txt. And let's put some data in this. So let's say something like population UK. And I think that's about 64 million last time I checked. Let's have also population France, which is something in the region, I believe, of 66,400,000. And we'll leave it there. So I'm just going to try to read this pretty simple kind of formatted file at the moment, and we're going to try to get the numbers out of there. So if you need to do this kind of task, if you need to read a comma-separated value list or something in C++, you can do it, but it can be fiddly. You might want to consider using C++11 and possibly the regular expression libraries that are built into C++11. Or you might even want to consider using the C functions that you can use in C++, which can be quite handy for this. And you can also just switch to a different language altogether, because C++ is not ideal for doing this kind of thing. There are other languages like Python and Perl that are designed from the ground up for parsing text, but you can do it. And we'll take a look at an example here. So first of all, we need to do exactly what we've done before. We need to open the file. So let's include fstream here, and we'll have using namespace standard in there, and let's create a ifstream input file stream object. We'll call it input. Let's open this input file. I'll use a string to store the name. Let's call this file name equals stats.txt, and I'll say input.open file name. Now let's put a check in. Let's say if not input.is_open. Well, in that case, there's no point continuing, and at that point I'm just going to return with an error code. The error code is useful if you run this program from some sort of command line automated tool type system. We mustn't forget to close the file, so I'll put in input.close. Okay. Now let's try to read this information in a loop. So I'm going to say while input, and we're going to try to read this line by line. So I'll use getLine. Let's have a string to store the line in here. Let's say string line, and we'll say getLine. So we're going to get line from the input into the string, and getLine actually allows us to supply a delimiter, and it will read up to that delimiter, and then the delimiter will be thrown away. So in the stats.txt we've got colons here, so let's try to read the information up to the colon. So we're going to put a delimiter in here. So I'm using single quotes because we use single quotes to create a single character literal in C++, which is different to a string that uses double quotes. We also would like to get the number after the colon, so we'd like to get these population values here. Well, there's no harm in mixing getLine with reading directly from the string. Let's create a int population here. It's always going to be an int in this particular case, and we're going to say input get from or extract from. This is the extraction operator, stream extraction operator, population. And let's output what we've got. So let's say cout line, and we'll have some white space in there. Let's have a couple of dashes, and then we'll output population. And finally let's output a new line so we can actually distinguish one line from the other. And let's run this and see how it actually looks. So I need to build it first, of course, which I forgot. Let's go to build project and wait for it to build, and then we can run it. So what we've got here is we've got the information that we wanted, but something weird has happened. For one thing, we've got this extra population appearing down here, and for another thing, these are separated not by a new line. We've not just got each of these bits of information on a new line, but we've also got blank lines between them. So what's going on here? Well, one thing that I like to do when I read a file like this is to surround the individual bits of data by single quotes, because that way you can see more easily what's going on. So let's put some single quotes in here. We can use single quotes within double quotes just to output a single quote if I hit the right key on my keyboard. So I'm gonna make use of this. Let's copy that, and then I can put one here as well. So we're surrounding line by single quotes. Let's do the same with the population here. So I can put a single quote just here, and then we can have another one here. And let's see if that gives us any clues about what's going on. So if we run this now, we see that we're fine with these bits of text that say population and then the country name. We're fine with the numbers here, but, well, it looks like it, but then we've got this blank line here appearing. If we look carefully at this, so this is okay. This looked okay to me at first glance, but if you look closely, what's happening is, so this single quote here is actually, it's actually one of the single quotes that are surrounding this. So what we've got is we've got a blank line. We've got an invisible non-printing new line character that we're reading, and we're outputting it at the start of this subsequent string here. So that's what's happening. At the end of every blank line in the text, at the end of every line in this text file, we've got an invisible non-printing new line character, which has the effect of putting the stuff following it on a new line. So we're reading this stuff here, and then when we read this, we also pick up the non-printing new line character, and we're collecting it as part of this string. So what we could do there is we can say here, okay, there we've got the line. Here we've got the number. We can just get a character. We can get the next character, whatever it is, which in this case is going to be the new line character, from that line, and just discard it. So we can say here input.get, and we just discard the return value of get, which gives us the that character, the new line character. So let's run this, see how that looks. Now it looks a lot better. So these lines are okay, but we've got a malformed line here. So we've got an empty string, and we've got the population of France repeated. And what's actually happening is when it tries to read the third line, which doesn't exist, we get the kind of an error state being set on the file input stream. It can't actually read another line, but we plow on anyway because we're not checking whether we should continue reading until we go around the loop again and we check the actual input stream here. So what we really want to do is, after we do get line, or perhaps after we get the population, it doesn't really matter too much. We want to check if we've actually got an error, and we're getting the population here again because when we do this, it's just giving us the last integer that it was able to successfully read, bearing in mind it's now in an error state. What we can do is we can say if not input, the not operator is overloaded for file streams to tell us whether they're in an error condition or not. Then we can just, let's say, break the loop, finish the loop, because we don't want to carry on at that point. So now if we run this, we find that we get exactly the lines that we want there. Now this is not ideal because we're doing input.get. What if there's more white space characters there or something? Who knows what could happen. So if you're using C++11, you can actually do this. We can actually say input read WS, and WS in C++11 just tells us to read whatever white space is there. So that's a little bit more of a robust solution, and it gives us the right answer. So I think that's it for this tutorial. I'd recommend trying all this out for yourself. If you're not using C++11, or if you're not using it, or even if you are, one interesting thing to do is to figure out how you could clean up a line after getting it. So if you got a line from your file and it may contain tabs or new line characters or whatever, the question is, how can you remove those from that string that you just read? So if you want an extra kind of exercise to do here, then it's worth doing some Googling and trying to find out how to remove new lines, new line characters, or let's say tab characters, or whatever you like, from a string. And you learn a lot by Googling for solutions, and you'll see that there are various possible ways of doing that, depending again on your version of C++. But there are certainly ways that work well in C++98. So have a go at that if you feel like it. Invent some sort of format like this, some sort of formatted text file with numbers in it, and have a go at reading those and see if you can use some combination of the things that I've shown you here, and if necessary other things that you'll have to Google for, to try to read the input successfully from that file and to parse it into actual C++ numbers. So you really learn a lot by doing that, especially if you make up different file formats for yourself. And this is quite hard in C++. It's not the ideal language for it, but we're looking at C++ here, so it's good to know how to do this, because sometimes you do need to do what we call parsing in C++. You need to get information like this out of a string or out of a file. So that's it for this tutorial. Until next time, happy coding.